Well, hello everybody on this hot and steamy day, or afternoon, close to evening time. I wanted to get on here and show you how I always fix my stewed potatoes. That's right, stewed potatoes. It's a simple dish. It's a good dish. You can serve it with pork chops, any kind of meat, other veggies that you want, or you can eat it just by itself. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to eat it for dinner tonight. First of all, we're going to peel some potatoes. And you know, I'm not fancy with my peeling the potatoes. I'm not fancy with cutting them up. Most of the time, I don't even use a cutting board. But that's the way I grew up doing it. Just the old, simple country way. Just hold them in your hand and peel them away. One of my viewers commented and said, you know, you can fry your potato skins. I said, yeah, I know that. But that would encourage me to eat more fried food that I don't want to have to eat. And basically I cook for one person, so I'm not going to fix a great big pot full of these. I'll fix enough that maybe I can eat some tomorrow as well as eat them for tonight's dinner. But say all you had is potatoes, maybe an onion. You can make this dish. If you got bacon to fry, to crumble up in it after you get it cooked, that's good, but that's not something that's required of this dish. Bacon grease is good to put in it to cook it, but it's not required. I'm just going to use regular vegetable oil or grapeseed oil with mine because I don't want to have to fry bacon. Take these potatoes over here and wash them right quick. Y'all know my kitchen is not staged. It's a regular, just old country kitchen that I use every day. Even if I don't do a video, I'm using this kitchen to cook in. So. And potatoes this big, I do usually chop them up with something. I mean a bigger knife. I don't use the littler knife. And I want fairly good sized chunks. Because we're going to cook these down to nothing almost. I mean, that's a pretty good sized hunk of potato right there. Because you know, potatoes cook fairly fast. Now we're going to come over here to the other side so you can see what I'm doing at the stove. First of all, I got my potatoes in my pot. I'm putting just enough water in there to barely cover. I mean, some of them aren't even covered, just to the top of the potatoes. And I'm going to get those on cooking. And I'm just going to take some diced onion. Use about a half of a small onion, depending on how many potatoes you have. You see, I had 3 pretty good sized potatoes. I'm going to put maybe a half of an onion in there that's already been chopped. And we're just going to saute our onion just a tiny bit. And I'm not putting garlic in this. It's not really required. I mean, you can put it in there if you like, but you don't have to in this dish. Let that pan heat up. While that's heating up, I just mixed me up some cornbread. I put about 3 tablespoons, heaping tablespoons of flour, 3 tablespoons of cornmeal, about a teaspoon of sugar. I put a little bit of garlic salt, onion salt, and 1 egg. And I'm going to leave that set there for a while. I'm going to put a little bit of salt in my potatoes. Not much, just a little sprig. That's about a half of an onion right there. And I'm just doing that to bring out the flavor in the onions. This is what I call a penny pincher meal. Because like I said, you can just eat the potato dish with a little bit of cornbread if you have it. Or you can use it as a side dish. Most of the time I eat this as the main meal. And maybe a little bit of cornbread on the side. We're not browning the onions, we're just sauteing them just a tiny bit to help bring out the flavor before we add them to our potatoes. And you can double the recipe, you can triple the recipe, you can cut it smaller. I mean, I could just cook 1 potato with very little onion to put in there, but I chose to fix enough at least so I'll be able to eat some tonight for dinner, and I'll have a little bit for tomorrow. That's what I call cooking for one. Because if you're going to go to trouble to cook something, why not cook enough at least so you'll have some leftovers for another meal? I mean, I always like my food, so I didn't mind eating leftovers, you know. I don't mind eating several meals off of one food item. I know my AC's running, my exhaust fan's running, I can't help that. It's just hot, y'all. This is a good recipe if you're watching your pennies. It's also a good recipe if you got plenty of money. You can use it as a side dish. But I love potatoes, I always have, so I don't mind eating my potatoes for the main dish. Okay, now, they got to forget that pan is hot. I'm going to take them and just dump them right in my potatoes. I'm going to put just a little bit of more oil in there, not much, just a tiny bit. And I'm going to pour my cornbread mixture in, because my pan is already hot. And I'm going to turn it down about medium to high. Put me a lid on and let it cook while my potatoes are cooking. Get those to a boil. I mean, how easy is that? Potatoes with onion and a little bit of oil, and I'm making a cornbread patty, or cornbread cake, not patty, a cornbread cake. if you had a little bit of bacon that you could spare, it's good to fry you a couple of pieces of bacon real crisp. Let it cool, crumble it up, and after your dish gets cooked, throw in your crumbled bacon and mix it up. It's real good that way, but it's not something that the stewed potatoes requires to make it a stewed potato dish. It just makes it a little bit better. But I'm going to show you how I always fix them. I just use the onion, the little bit of oil, if I had bacon grease, I would use that. My potatoes, a little bit of salt, a little bit of seasoning, and that's basically it. And if you'll remember, we're going to cook our cornbread till it starts getting a little dry on the top, and then we're going to flip it, which it's not there yet, so. I am going to take a plate and this is another thing that's going to go with my dish. And that's just a, I cut the top of this off of the tomato. If you have a tomato out of the garden, which I had one, I mean, I had several, but I made a tomato sandwich out of a couple of them. And the other one is going to be part of this dish. A lot of times when I eat these stewed potatoes, all I have is the bread and the potatoes. I don't have a tomato available or cucumbers or anything like that, but I did have that one today, so. Yeah, there's a lot of old recipes that you can cook that actually saves you money. People today are spoiled. They think if they don't have a steak dinner or a big pot roast or something that they're not eating food. I mean, those are all luxuries to me. Extreme luxuries usually. Unless I'm working now. If I'm working and with my retirement check, then I can afford a steak or a big roast, or I can afford, like I did, to go out yesterday and get my catfish dinner, which, like I said, that's the first catfish dinner I've bought in probably a year or longer. But I just felt like, well, you know, as hard as I worked on my garden, just to make me feel better, I'm going to go get me a catfish dinner. So I took y'all with me. If I want to do it that way, just flip it over on a plate. basically just want to brown it on both sides and it's done. Cover that just a little bit. And you can see I did cook my cornbread in my cast iron pan. I do prefer to cook it, if I'm going to do a whole cake of cornbread, to do it in my cast iron pan because it holds heat a lot more evenly. If I was just going to fry the fritters, then it wouldn't matter. I mean, and you can still fix the cake in just a regular frying pan. You don't have to have a cast iron. I just want to get that brown. I don't want to burn it. I've got the burner turned off, so it's just going to stay in there and really slow cook just for a couple of minutes before I take it out. I'm also going to put a good rounded tablespoon of butter in my potatoes. I'm stirring because I don't want my potatoes to stick to the bottom of the pan, the pot. Yeah, the comment that I got from one of my viewers when I was peeling potatoes for another dish was, you know, you can fry those potato skins. Yeah, I know you can. But then that means I've got to deep fry them, and I have to use a lot of grease to deep fry them, and I don't want to do that. I've got away as much as possible as I can from deep frying anything. For one, it takes too much oil to deep fry. It's not healthy for you to deep fry. I'm going to go ahead and put my cornbread right here, and I'm just going to cut it. Woo, that's hot. I'm just going to slice it open a little bit, because I'm going to put me a little bit of butter in there. I like hot buttered cornbread. There you go. Put that on my dish. I got my tomatoes and I've got my cornbread. And I'll have my potatoes in just a minute. What we're trying to do is, while those potatoes are cooking, the liquid is going to boil out of them. So they're going to end up almost like a consistency of a cream potato. Not really, because it's going to have the big hunks of potato in there. Got a piece of onion up there. bit of pepper in there. Well, my pepper shaker is empty. Let me get over here and see if I can find some pepper. Because I like a little bit of pepper in mine. Now turn the heat down a little bit and let them boil just to cook some of the water out. Remember, all we put in there was a little bit of seasoning. We put salt, we put pepper, we put a tablespoon of butter, and the potatoes and water, and the onion. I mean, years ago, they cooked what they had, you know. They couldn't just run to the store and get a steak or a big roast or a big package of pork chops. Or sometimes vegetables out of the garden was all they had to eat. Unless they raised their own livestock and butchered their own livestock and had smokehouses and stuff like that to cure their bacon and their hams. Like I said, you do have to stir it occasionally to keep it from sticking to the bottom of the pot. And the more water you put in your potatoes, the longer you have to cook it to cook that water out. So you might think about that when you put water in your potatoes. You don't have to really cover your potatoes. Potatoes have some water in them already. tell mine is starting to thicken up a little bit. The thicker it gets, the lower you put the heat, because if you don't, it'll spit out at you. I find some of the older recipes are even better than some of the newer ones. They take less ingredients, they're less fancy, but they taste just as good. Sometimes even better. Oh, I gotta get me something to drink, y'all. Oh, here's some water. It's so hot, it's even hot in here. Makes you thirsty. And at this point, I'm not really stirring them. I'm just trying to make sure they don't stick to the bottom of the pot. Because once that liquid starts boiling out, it gets thick and creamy, and you run the risk of scorching your potatoes in the bottom of your pot. So that's when you need to turn the heat down pretty low. I'll show you what the consistency of my potatoes are about right now. can see the water is cooking down out of them. They're getting creamy. The water is getting thick, but they still need to cook just a little bit longer. Almost done. Don't know how long they've been cooking. Don't know what time I started the video. I know it doesn't take them long. No longer than it takes to boil potatoes, that's for sure. And here are your stewed potatoes, y'all. We got stewed potatoes, cornbread with butter, and sliced fresh tomatoes out of the garden. That's an old country meal right there. Old-fashioned stewed potatoes. Try it. You might like it. Y'all have a blessed day. Please like, share, and subscribe to my videos, and I'll see you on my next one. Bye now.